In 2005, Cherif Kouachi was arrested along with an Islamist recruiter as he prepared to commit violent jihad. Kouachi was then convicted and given a sentence of 10 years in prison, but he only served 3 years before he was released. Kouachi then seemingly fell off the radar for French intelligence, only to be seen again when he and his brother Saeed committed one of the worst terror attacks France has ever experienced. Well, let's talk about this. I'm joined by Mark Hauser. He's a university editor at Robert Morris University. He met Cherif Kouachi's lawyer while reporting on counterterrorism in Europe back in 2005. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on the show, Carol.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. So at the time you wrote, you were surprised that that Kouachi was let out of prison after only 3 years. Why did French authorities decide to do that?
Well, when I visited France and talked to authorities there, in 2005, Kouachi had just been arrested and actually was going to be charged. I talked to France's, one of its 2 top terrorism judges, and Judge Ricard told me at the time that he believed that France certainly did not have very severe criminal sentences for terrorists. So he was aware of this, and so were the French at the time. And I've gone back and looked, and many of the terrorists that I wrote about then are also out, not just Cherif Kouachi, but also Jamal Bigal, we've heard about, and also the imam that radicalized Kouachi, or at least that he claimed had radicalized him. He's out too. In fact, he was a nursing student at the hospital where the victims of the Charlie Hebdo shootings were brought.
So you also wrote that Kouachi's lawyer convinced authorities, the judge, that Kouachi had changed his mind about becoming a jihadist. Is that true?
Oh, I don't know that he had convinced them of that. He argued that, certainly. They convicted Kouachi, though. It's simply that, as I said, the sentences in Europe, once the investigators have broken up a ring, and this pattern seems to continue to this day, sadly, but the sentences are not very long, and prisoners are eligible for early release or house arrest. I just read about another Algerian convicted terrorist in France, Saeed Arif, who was in house arrest and stole a car and fled, and they know he's in Syria now. The members of the group, the Hofstad group in the Netherlands, that were linked to the murder of Theo van Gogh, the filmmaker, which I wrote about those people too, and they're released, other than Theo van Gogh's killer. He has a life sentence. And even the head of Al-Qaeda in Spain, a man known as Abu Dada, who was convicted for helping our 9/11 plotters and also suspected of helping the Madrid bombing plotters. He's been released too. I think it was 2013. I'm not sure where he is now.
So why the light sentences? Did they not take these convictions seriously?
It's hard to say. I mean, they certainly do take the threat of terrorism seriously. I've been told that by, well, I was told that when I was there many years ago, but and I'm sure that's still the case. And when I talked to a Spanish prosecutor who was working on the 3/11 case, he pointed out to me that the first person ever arrested and convicted of Islamic terrorism in Spain, he got an appeal, or he got out on appeal, that is, and the next thing we know, the police had his apartment surrounded. He was one of the plotters of the Madrid bombings, and they only identified him by his DNA because they blew themselves up. So I think their focus in Europe tends to be on investigating and less on strict or long sentences that we're more accustomed to here.
Well, that's a shame. Mark Hauser, thanks for your insight. I appreciate it.